Movie opens with a young woman named Frida, who aspires to be an animal-themed nail artist but works as a waitress. She is currently posting pictures of her nail art on social media, after which she stumbles upon an interview of a man named Slater King, who is a billionaire tech mogul. Slater publicly asks for forgiveness for unspecified inappropriate behavior, and announces his resignation as CEO of his company. He also reveals that he purchased an island where he grows his own food and raises chickens. It turns out that Frida has a crush on him and begins finding more information about him on the internet. Moreover, Frida becomes frustrated by her monotonous life, and exclaims that she needs a vacation. Days later, she and her roommate, Jess, arrive at Slater's annual gala to work as waitresses. Her boss confronts Frida about her actions at last year's event when she tried to speak with Slater. She apologizes, explaining how he approached her and complimented her nails, but her boss advises her to stay invisible this time. The two girls notice how lavish the event is, with wealthy guests dressed in their finest. While working, Frida occasionally peeks at Slater. Later, Jess brings her to the locker room, where she is smuggled in two party dresses for them to wear. After that, they start roaming around the party, blending in with the VIPs. Soon, Frida notices Slater in the distance, and begins to walk toward him, but she accidentally bumps into a waiter and falls to the ground. At this embarrassing moment, a hand extends to help her, and it turns out to be Slater's. After the two introduce themselves, Slater decides to acquaint her with his social circle, starting with his therapist, Dr. Rich. Frida jokes that he should blink twice if she's in danger, which Dr. Rich does, and they laugh. Slater then introduces her to his childhood friend, Cody, his security, Stan, his right-hand man, Vic, and his female friends, Heather and Camilla. A college graduate, Lucas, a DJ named Tom, and a reality TV star named Sarah. Following this, Frida's night is transformed into a whirlwind of laughter and liquor, and she is overjoyed to hang out with her crush. But during this, his assistant Stacy arrives, and says they must leave for the island. The two sadly say their goodbyes, and Slater proceeds to leave. But as Frida is talking with Jess about her experience, he unexpectedly returns and invites them to accompany him to the island, which they accept. In the next scene, Slater's entire group, excluding Dr. Rich, boards a private jet and flies to their destination. When they arrive, Frida is utterly shocked by the lavishness of the place. Stacy then shows up to collect everyone's phones, so their vacation is not disrupted by work issues. All of them agree without hesitation, but Jess is a bit skeptical and hands it over. Next, Slater takes Frida to her room, which is stocked with clothes for her to change into. After he leaves, she takes a shower, and applies an exquisite perfume she finds in the room. While she's about to change, an old maid suddenly arrives, and looks at her as if she knows her, calling her Red Rabbit. Frida is confused and asks what it means, but the woman leaves the room without responding. Later, Frida goes outside and meets Jess, who is surprised that there are clothes for them given that they were invited at the last minute. But Frida dismisses it as a perk of being rich. The two then meet the rest of the girls, all of whom are dressed similarly. None of them find it strange, and they proceed to join the men at the pool. While there, Frida continues to exchange looks with Slater, but he's soon approached by Sarah. She tries to flirt with him, but he doesn't seem interested in her and keeps his focus on Frida. Following this, Slater gives Frida a tour of the place, and shows her a rare flower named Desideria, from which their perfume is made. He also reveals that the island is infested with lash vipers, which the workers are attempting to eradicate. He then opens up, admitting that he remembers almost nothing about his life before the age of 10. This is why he visits Dr. Rich, who specializes in repressed memories. Frida finds it strange, but Slater explains that forgetting can be a gift sometimes. As they continue their tour, they come across the assistant Stacy, who is carrying several red gift bags. Later that night, everyone gathers in the dining room, where candles are lit all over because the generator isn't working. While eating, Frida accidentally stains her dress. The right-hand man Vic then asks her what she does for a living, to which she responds that she's just trying to figure it out. We also notice that Vic is missing a pinky finger, so Slater jokes by asking how he lost it, but Vic doesn't respond. He instead takes out a small bottle of MDMA drugs. After consuming them, the group experiences euphoria, and begins laughing and having fun. Everything appears to be going well, but when Frida goes to bed, she notices that the stain on her dress has disappeared. She finds it strange, but doesn't think much about it. Over the next few days, they drink bottomless champagne and swim in the pool during the day, followed by gourmet dinners and drugs at night. One evening, Slater notices the scar next to Frida's eye and asks what happened, but she claims to have no idea. She then questions her about her nails. Frida responds by explaining her small brand, Animals, which is a combination of the words animal and nails. The answer seems to satisfy him, but he suddenly excuses himself and leaves. He leaves in such a hurry that he forgets his vaporizer. As Frida is observing the vaporizer later, she notices dirt under her fingernails, which shocks her. The next morning, when Frida goes to return the vaporizer, she sees Slater leaving his therapy session with Dr. Rich. Frida greets the doctor and reminds him of when Slater introduced them at the gala, as well as the joke about blinking twice. But the doctor nervously agrees with her, before quickly leaving the mansion with a red gift bag. One night, everyone is dancing and having fun, until they hear a scream. It turns out that Jess has been bitten by a snake. Slater kills the snake with a bottle, and assures her that the venom is not deadly. However, she begins to panic for some reason and leaves the party. When Frida approaches her, Jess says she wants her phone back and wants to leave. She claims that something bizarre is happening here, and that these people are strange. But Frida refuses to leave, claiming that, for the first time in her life, she doesn't feel invisible, and this is the vacation they have always desired. In the end, Jess also agrees and decides to stay on the island. Later on, while staying alone, Jess experiences a nosebleed. The next morning, Frida begins her day by showering and applying the same perfume. She then goes for a walk, during which she comes across a red bag lying on the floor in front of her room. Curious, Frida enters the room and discovers a large number of red bags inside. Just then, the old maid arrives and starts calling her Red Rabbit again. She also gives Frida a strange green liquid, which the latter takes a sip of without hesitation. But the maid quickly points to some snake remains, revealing that the liquid is actually venom extracted from all of the snakes they have caught, and Frida frantically leaves the room. In the next scene, she has a strange dream in which she sees Jess holding a knife and asking her to hide it. When Frida wakes up, she doesn't feel well, and her appearance catches Sarah's attention. Lucas then shows up with a bruise on his eye, but no one pays much attention to it, just as no one notices Jess's absence. After breakfast, the men are excited to go fishing, while the girls decide to stay behind. One of the girls takes out Jess' lighter, prompting Frida to ask about her. But shockingly, none of them seem to recognize or remember someone named Jess. A worried Frida then rushes to the room where Jess is staying, only to find the furniture piled up as if she had never been there. Frida then heads to her room, where she finds a knife behind a mirror. Just then, Sarah appears holding the lighter with Jess's name on it. Frida asserts that Jess was here, but Sarah says she would recall if there was another person present. Frida then talks about the strange events that have been happening, like how she always wakes up with dirt under her nails. Sarah also shows a bruise on her arm and has no idea how she got it. Plus, she admits that in this group, she only knows Cody, who approached her in a coffee shop and invited her to the island. This makes them both realize that they're somehow being played by these men who are manipulating their minds. Next, Frida recalls how Slater once mentioned that forgetting is a gift. They then enter the room with several red bags, and speculate that the perfume must contain a substance that causes them to forget their memories. Frida also states that she started recalling some things after drinking the snake venom which was given to her by the maid. Soon, Frida discovers more snake venom in the room, and gives it to Sarah to try. They then decide to mix it with tequila, and give it to Heather and Camilla, hoping that it will help them regain their memories as well. They are soon joined by Stacy, and she also consumes some of the drinks. She then informs the girls that the men will be returning soon. Realizing that time is running out, Frida decides to search for the phones inside, and asks Sarah to yell if the men arrive. Not long after, Sarah begins to get a nosebleed, just like Jess had before she disappeared. When the men arrive, Slater asks where Frida is, so Sarah simply responds that she's getting freshened up in her room. Meanwhile, Frida enters Slater's private villa and breaks into a locked cupboard to look for the cell phones. She manages to find them, but then hears Sarah yelling and quickly hides everything. At this point, a box falls, and Frida is shocked to see several Polaroid photos of various people holding red bags. Moments later, Slater walks into the room and grabs some liquid for his vape. He is completely unaware that Frida is hiding under his desk. Just then, the snake venom begins to affect her, causing her nose to bleed and triggering some memories, where she sees herself and the other women bound and terrified while the men tortured them. It turns out the snake venom had made Jess remember everything, so Slater ordered Stan to kill her.